Welcome back, families. Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger will now be launching a new communication system. They won't just be launching this communication system alone, they will be doing it in collaboration with Russia. A communication system that grants data privacy. Ladies and gentlemen, join me as I take you away to the exclusive report from First Post.
For the first time ever, Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger are planning a shared communications satellite, one designed to operate outside Western control, and Russia says it is ready to build it. Burkina Faso's Prime Minister held talks with Russia's ambassador on launching a Russian-built telecommunications satellite. Reports say the project would serve the alliance of Sahel states, linking Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger through a single shared platform. Officials say this would not be a national satellite, but rather a shared asset, owned and used collectively by the Alliance for the AES. Analysts say this is a strategic upgrade, as the gains go far beyond technology. It would expand broadband and mobile connectivity in remote areas, where infrastructure is nearly non-existent. It would enable secure, encrypted communications for governments and armed forces. And through remote sensing, it would support border monitoring, surveillance and disaster response in areas where ground infrastructure barely exists. This is not a sudden move, as it builds on years of quiet coordination between the Sahel states and the Kremlin. In September 2024, ministers from Mali, Niger and Burkina Faso reportedly met officials from Russia's space agency Roscosmos in Bamako. Those talks focused on joint telecommunications and surveillance satellites designed to support security operations and civilian infrastructure. The stated goal was clear: reduce dependency on Western systems and tighten control over regional security. The satellite push comes as the alliance is rebuilding its entire security architecture. In December 2025, Burkina Faso, Mali and Niger launched the AES, a 5,000-strong joint military force with headquarters based in Niamey, the capital of Niger. The force is commanded by Burkina General Daouda Traoré. His mandate includes joint air operations, intelligence sharing and cross-border offensives against terrorist groups, an issue the region has repeatedly been persistently dealing with. According to the United Nations, the Sahel now accounts for half of all global terrorism deaths. However, regional leaders blame the crisis on years of foreign intervention.
Some detractors hope to see Mali collapse. They wanted to see the Malian people on their knees, divided and weakened. Today, those on the side of the terrorist groups operating in our region are the French junta and the Algerian junta.
Well, analysts say a dedicated satellite would give the Sahel states a sharper eye on threats, faster response times against terrorist groups, and Moscow has been open about where it stands.
Terrorist threats and high activity of illegal armed groups remain present in the countries of the Alliance of Sahel states. We support your position on the necessity of strengthening the security, the defense of territories and the sovereignty. The Russian Defense Ministry is ready to provide all-round assistance for ensuring stability in the region.
And Russia was also the first country to formally recognize the Alliance of Sahel states. Analysts say this deepening partnership comes as Western influence in the region continues to collapse. French forces have withdrawn from Mali, Burkina Faso and Niger. The United States has imposed visa restrictions on all three, met with reciprocal bans. Niger has stripped France's Orano of its uranium mining rights, shifting preference towards Russian firms. All three AES states have also withdrawn from the International Criminal Court, calling it a biased Western institution.
More reports are still going to be coming on this collaboration between the Sahel state and Russia. Analysts from Ghana are now speaking extensively about their perspective on the presence of the United States in Ghana, most especially the air base that the United States have been using to launch some critical reconnaissance mission, not just reconnaissance mission. According to what analysts from Ghana said, they said you cannot even vet what the United States forces are doing within that, space in the Ghanaian airport. Ladies and gentlemen, they didn't just say that alone. They are now even speaking based on their suspicion on what the agenda of the United States is in West Africa? Is he an agent of unity or an agent of destabilization? Family, join me as I take you away, because this interview is very, very important. The first speaker spoke to a certain extent, covered ground, but the second speaker actually broke the table. Ladies and gentlemen, he was unapologetic about the speech, and I want us to listen to it.
You see, we must all be concerned. And the concern I have, which I think is a school of thought shared by many Pan-Africanists, is that gradually Africa is being recolonized, being divided, between East and West, between America, Russia, Turkey, China, and so on and so forth. African states are becoming enemies of themselves. And we cannot take out Ghana. By virtue of the fact that we have somehow, I don't want to use very strong words, allow the US to come and nest in the tree of Ghana and bring material that we don't have the right to inspect and know what is going on. America could draw us into a conflict with Burkina Faso, because early this year, or was it late last year, when this American Beechcraft or Beechcraft, whatever aircraft was sighted at Paga, and the youth demanded that they will not allow the plane to offload whatever material or cargo they had brought there. At about the same time, there was an attempted coup, an assassination attempt against Traore. And it was reported that 7 or 17 Burkina soldiers, fully armed, had entered Ghana. And yet Ghana, at least messaging-wise, signaling, optics-wise, has positioned itself as, a neutral arbiter, and at least based on good neighborliness, is reconciling with Burkina Faso. This Nigerian question, my colleagues have already used very diplomatic, terms. But clearly, it's a case of Nigeria or its president outsourcing its sovereign security responsibilities to the US. You see it. You don't stop the ISSP and Boko Haram by using drones alone. Because part of the game is control of territory. So if you haven't even got the drones, or you haven't got the munitions that are precision in effect, it doesn't mean that you must go to America to acquire precision munitions, which sincerely Nigeria hasn't got. What Nigeria has are munitions that are used in open warfare. So you're fighting a conventional enemy and you go and blast it, explode it, and then everybody dies. But when you are in Maiduguri, which brings us to urban terrorism environment, or you are in Sokoto, you cannot use the kinds of munitions that Nigeria has acquired from Turkey and China and even Israel. Nigeria started with Israel in 2006. That was the first time it acquired drones. So somehow Nigeria felt that it must, if you like, diffuse the pressure that America was putting on it by saying, okay, you come in and do the work, and if there are any consequences, at least the blame will shift to you. The selection of the target is also equally worrisome. Now, Sokoto in history, in the history of Islam in West Africa, and Nigeria in particular, is not an ordinary caliphate. So why America decided to go and hit Sokoto because of the ISSP, which only started in 2017 and left Boko Haram, which had been around in the Northwest since about 2005, other literature will even say earlier in 1995, Nigeria clearly played into the hands of the US. And again, he mentioned the framing of the messages was also very disturbing. Tinubu was at pains to say that, look, both Christians and Muslims are dying. Indeed, it is not true. that only Christians are being killed, even if Christians may be in larger numbers. But I don't think we even have the statistics. And yet America or US President Trump was very insistent that this was a fight against Christians. So he turned himself into a crusader, and then decided to signal that the attack, it is actually worsening, turning the situation in Nigeria into one of religion.
All right. Let's take a breather. I'll come back and we'll wrap up with Prof. Introdanso and Colonel Festus Abuaji retired. This is the point of view. It's a geopolitical analysis. But Colonel, before I come back to you, let me give Prof a final thought on the Nigeria and the West Africa situation and the point around security. So, Prof, how concerned should Ghana be about what happened in Nigeria, number one, and number two, the fact that now Kotoka International Airport seems to have become a base for the US. So since they were expelled from Niger, Benin, Ghana, Ivory Coast, and Chad seem to have become the distributed space for US military accoutrement. How concerned should we be in this country, and how delicate is the balance we are striking between being seen as a US ally, which we've traditionally been, and also the growing importance of China, and of course the issues around Russia and the Sahel-3. How can we navigate this?
Well, navigate we should, but I think Festus has said it all. What was missing was the very fact that we need to read beyond the lines. Since the coup in Niger, the US has always tried to find a way of getting back. They couldn't have just lost their base in Agadez just for that, and then Niger controlling the uranium. So the idea that ECOWAS wanted even to go in within 1 week, that was another insane thing. There was no way, and Festus will tell you that there's no way a multinational force can be mobilized within 1 week. But it was clear, as one Nigerian senator then condemned the whole idea and vowed that the Senate was not going to allow it, was that Trump wanted Nigerian troops to go in as if it were ECOWAS troops, and then Americans would have come in, and then there would be a regime change. So all such ploys to get back at those countries that are defying the norm, the American-led norm, is still there. They would always want places. And as Festus said, Benin, Ghana, Ivory Coast are ready spots where they will get their lily pads, from where they would launch whatever it is, whether it's assassination or whatever it is. Is it not ironical that the so-called flights that we saw in Paga coincided with the coup attempt in Burkina? So we need to look at all this and know that none of us is safe. So if we play ball with the Americans, we are in trouble. Then we allow us. Ghana has a lily pad already, because I know there is this comprehensive defense pact that we signed includes a small base. I don't know how to call it, but they have a small office over here at the Air Force base, I'm told, where we cannot inspect whatever they are doing over. We cannot even get near. You cannot even go there and find out what is there. I don't know whether our military intelligence or the NIB or any other of our security agencies know what exactly the Americans are putting in there. And because it is a pad, we can be drawn into any other antagonistic war with any other person. I mean, like Abuaji said, Burkina Faso. We have antagonized Burkina Faso before, when our ex-president was in the US and made it believe as if through Burkina Faso terrorists were coming to Ghana. And it brought a diplomatic spark between us and Burkina Faso. So we can be drawn into anything, and that's why we should be watching. We should be very careful not to allow America to have a military base.
Just a quick one on that. Now that President Mahama is being touted for the AU chairmanship, and with his overshares to the Sahel-3 and his experience, how crucial will he be in managing all of this?
It's very crucial. I know he's a very good politician. Let's be blunt. He's being suspected of being more left, that is, closer to the Russians. This one, I had some conversation in some quarters. The EU, the Americans view him as somebody who must have been supported by the Russians to come to power or whatever it is. So they're dealing with him with suspicion. But Americans come in with coercion and with whatever. They knew Maduro didn't like them, for example. So some pressure was put through all angles, and they will put pressure on our president. What I want him to do if he gets the nod, for example, is to gather Africa as one unit. Let's fight this kind of maneuvering with one fist. But if we begin to make Nigeria, Benin, Ghana, and Ivory Coast in the camp of America, and then others are in some other camp, then we will be recolonized, like Festus said. And the recolonization is ongoing. Only yesterday, it was Turkey trying to go all around Africa, signing agreements, defense pacts agreements, and building mosques all over. Israel recognizing Somaliland, etc., etc. We need to be very careful. Already the colonization is going on. The Sudanese war is an external war being fought on our soil, for example. So Africa must gang up together and be one, resolute, in the interest of Pan-Africanism. That's the only way we can fight.
So we spoke extensively on these suspicions on the Android community, about the timing of the US delegation or visit to Burkina Faso. We are seeing different delegations, and when you study the timing critically, these delegations are always coming. Once something happens that is very, very shocking, just give it about a month. Then a new delegation will come proposing peace, proposing security. Mrs. Joan made it very, very clear that the United States, they are going to be taking Burkina Faso very importantly, and they want to offer security. And that is where they think, the Burkina Faso state will need them the most. The question is, why are they offering Burkina Faso that security? Security just after a very, very, dangerous coup attempt. Burkina Faso have been taking care of the terrorists. So it only means one thing. The coup d'etat has an affiliation with some people. You know the people that we're talking about. So families, on the last episode of this information, now we have the president of the Democratic Republic of Congo, Felix Tshisekedi, visiting Paris. And on this particular visit, he spoke extensively with the French president, Emmanuel Macron. You see, families, we are beginning to see a development in Africa. It seems like Africa is about to get recolonized again. When you look at the reaction of some head of state, you know where they belong. And there are some group of leaders in Africa. They really, really, truly belong to Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a critical time in African geopolitics. And this is not the time to be neutral. This is the time to pick a side. Because after this period, a new history will be written. And the heroes in this storyline would never be forgotten. So, ladies and gentlemen, even the villains will never be forgotten. Nobody will forget the name Damiba after the coup attempt, right? That did not even work. But Damiba is now becoming even more popular. So, ladies and gentlemen, a new story, a new history is being written as we speak in Africa. What side are you going to stand on? Is it with the West or with the multipolar world? So, ladies and gentlemen, these visits, to Paris, according to the information we receive, is to get a reaffirmation from the French authorities. Okay? Now, according to information, Emmanuel Macron reaffirms France's support to DRC. That is just the beginning, right? French President Emmanuel Macron received Congolese President Felix Tshisekedi. During the meeting, Macron reaffirmed French full support for the sovereignty and territorial integrity of the Democratic Republic of Congo. Okay, let me first of all stop there. How do you claim that your sovereignty and territorial integrity will be granted by a country that is being kicked out by so many, former colonies? That's the question. Their former colonies don't want anything to do with them. But, Felix Tshisekedi wants Emmanuel Macron more than Emmanuel Macron will even ask for Felix Tshisekedi. Because if you traveled all the way from Africa to France, man, ladies and gentlemen, the proof is out there in the pudding. So, ladies and gentlemen, while welcoming the effort towards an effective and verifiable ceasefire in the eastern part of the country, the French head of state also emphasized France's determination to meet the need of the Congolese population. France's determination to meet the need of the Congolese population. Who is governing the Congolese people? Who is supposed to meet the need of the Congolese people? Ladies and gentlemen, I won't lie to you. You see the DRC. I don't even know if they've ever been sovereign. Okay, that's the first question. After Lumumba, I don't know if they've ever been sovereign. Now, that is not just where we are going to stop. Okay, I'm now seeing a video, right? But I took a screenshot from that video. Congolese troops with US troops in Uvira. According to the information we had, they said the US troops, were part of the forces that sent out the M23. But ladies and gentlemen, that information is antagonistic to the authentic information that came out. Because recently, the M23, government and the DRC delegation were in Europe to have a discussion about peace. And during this meeting, the M23 leadership they agreed that they were going to be, moving out from Uvira. They agreed. They left peacefully. And after they left and they announced that they've, evacuated the region, the next thing is we saw the DRC troops moving. The question is, what are these American troops doing with these DRC troops in that particular region? Man, you see the case of DRC families. I don't know what to say. This is beyond sovereignty at this point. I don't know. If you have you can actually give us your opinion on what you think about DRC in the comment section below. It's your boy 72 Andre signing out. Enough said. But before I go, thank you, families. And if you think I've given you some values based on the information I've given and my positions, you can actually do well by hitting the like, share, and subscribe button. And if you're feeling generous, you can leave a comment in the comment section below. Thank you, and God bless you.